Today is about what happens after you've proven you can build it. The grit phase is essential, but at a certain point, grit without structure becomes a ceiling. So today, audience, excited to introduce you to Brad Levkowitz, the co-owner of Sun Lighting. Welcome to the Dream Plan Retire Studio. Super excited about our conversation today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's exciting stuff. As we finish out the year, the podcast is always aimed around helping business owners learn from others, their journey, whether they started on their own or, in your case, multi-generational family, and how you guys have taken a business that's been around since, I think, the 50s.
Yes.
And through perseverance, some grit, some hard work, some sweat, you've been able to take it to the next level in this modern world.
Yep.
And so that's what we're going to do today, is learn your journey on how you've taken Sun Lighting to where it is today and really what the future is going to look like. So entrepreneurial, never for the faint of heart, huh?
No, never. There's always a new challenge. It's very exciting and stressful at times.
And growing up in a family that was a family business, was that always in your blood as you were young, is that you wanted to continue on with that entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, I mean, it was really funny because as a kid, we would always go to my grandfather's store, always visit with him, see him, and then my dad started working for him. And we would always do things to earn money at the store, like sweeping the floors. And I remember all my friends would get a brand new Super Nintendo for the holidays. And my dad's like, no, you're going to work for it. And so, I stacked boxes and swept the floors and earned money. And it was a really good lesson. And getting to interact with customers, even though I was a young kid, people, liked working with me and seeing me there at the store. And so it showed me what it took to run a business and basically living in it and just seeing it for, as a small child and growing up into it, into high school and into college too.
And this was down in Tucson where the first store was?
Yeah, down in Tucson. So it was interesting because my grandfather really started it as more of a Home Depot style warehouse. And then my dad took it over and moved the location and turned it into more of a high-end retail showroom. And so it was interesting to see the dichotomy between, the different trends in the market, and then seeing my dad take it to a new level. And then now, getting a chance after college to start my own thing and, really just create my own business basically.
And so let's talk about that. The first phase of today's show is going to be about the grit. Even though it was already a business that had been around for years in Tucson,
yeah,
you really looked at things and saying, I can take what was built and the name and what I've learned, but now we're basically starting and expanding, but starting a new business up here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Was that scary for you?
Not really, because I knew I had a background in retail. My college degree was retail and consumer sciences, and as well as business and Spanish. And so I knew what it was going to take. We saw an opportunity back in 2004, 2005. The housing market was really exploding. And there was an opportunity to come in and start working on, tract homes. The Valley was just growing at a record pace, and we wanted to put our foot in the market. What was interesting is that nobody up here knew who we were down in Tucson. Tucson's pretty, insulated for what it is. So we had to come up here, and my dad said, here's a van with no AC, here's a desk from the 60s and a warehouse space, now go out and sell. And I was like, okay, well, who do I call? Where do I go? And it was me just basically cold calling national home builders until they were sick of me and finally giving me a shot. And we got a few jobs, and I had to be the one that was the secretary, the order processor, the salesperson, the installer, and the delivery driver. So I really got my hand in, doing all the different roles in the company. And it was a great lesson because nobody handed me and said, here's a full-on staff and figure it out. And some of the pitfalls, my dad likes to remind me about this, is that my paperwork was terrible, but my ability to sell, that was easy. I mean, I could just make relationships and talk to people and do my thing. And so it took a lot of work to get my first contract, and we framed it, and I have it in my office today. And it's just a reminder of where we started and where we are today. So,
and that's a good lesson, because I think, especially to today's world, 20 years later, people are afraid of hitting the phones, or afraid of the no, so I'm going to send an email, or I'm going to send a text.
Yeah.
But even in today's world, and I'm sure you teach your sales team the same, it's like the relationships are key, and the perseverance, and being able to just keep hitting the pavement and taking a lot no's is going to turn into finally that yes.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that my dad wanted me to do also, which I really admire and look back on now, and it's one of the mandatory things that we push our salespeople to do, is to go and take Dale Carnegie classes, read How to Win Friends and Influence People. I thought that was a really influential way of connecting with people, creating relationships. And it taught me a whole lot about, sales, and just how to be a more personable and relatable person, and kind of break through the initial, I don't know who you are and why would I talk to you kind of a phase. So that helped tremendously. And what grew from that was really crazy. And I know you kind of have a similar story, but we got to a point where we would then get into custom homes, and I knew all the areas in the valley like super well. And so I'd get an opportunity to go and meet with a customer, let's say in Paradise Valley, and I would drive around that neighborhood and look for other construction sites and fences and projects. And, oftentimes maybe you would see a really nice car sitting out front, or a lifted, beautiful truck. And you're like, oh, that's the builder. So I'd go in with my business card, my flyer, and, introduce myself. And so it was like, okay, I don't have anything else to do. Might as well drive around Paradise Valley or Arcadia and introduce myself and see if I can get in with this builder. And from there, it was just like calling and calling and calling until we got those connections, and they gave us a shot. And a lot of our competition here in the Valley really opposed us moving up here, because it would take away from their business. But I was like, listen, I'm young, I'm hungry, I'm ready to work hard. And, I just want to create a legacy for, my future family, and, build the business. So,
and so those early days, what helped to separate you besides that perseverance? What was some of the value add that you presented to these builders? Why would they choose you versus the companies that they already had the relationships with?
Well, what I realized is like I could compete on price at the time, because it was myself. We didn't have a lot of overhead. We had a very small office. There was no fancy showroom. So we had that going for us. The other thing that we had is that we had a ton of buying power from the years that my grandfather and father had built the business, and vendor relations was huge. Like my dad always said, pay your bills early, pay them on time, have good credit. So that was really important to us. And then the other thing too was they were working with the owner of the company. So I'm dealing with millionaires who, don't want to be pawned off on a salesperson. Like I said, I'm the person that you're dealing with. You get me, you call me, I'm going to answer my phone. And that's really taught me a big lesson nowadays, is that we were just out at dinner at a new restaurant that we did. And the things that we were commiserating with some of the other people that were there was, all you have to do is just pick up your phone. You just have to be available. You have to be, when they need you, you have to be there. And so that was huge. And so I've taught that to my salespeople even going forward. It's like, that's just be available, always be communicating, just be authentic, and, people like that. So,
and so those early days, it was really just you in the beginning. You were handling and wearing all the hats.
Yeah, I would say for the first 2 years, and then my brother joined me. He worked in San Francisco at a really high-end lighting store there. He moved to the Valley. We convinced him to come. He brought a lot of the high-end custom, the custom home business and the know-how, whereas I was more the track home builder. So it was a good marrying of the two of us. And one of the things that my dad always said is that, if you put the two of you together, you guys are unstoppable, because you both have that grit, that hustle to want to build something really spectacular. So.
And did Tucson allow you to, that first they're like, well, we don't want this, maybe thinking not nepotism, but what are they doing? This is going to, pull back from what we're doing over here, and it's already successful. Was it then, as you started having success in closing deals, did they start looking and saying, okay, we're down with this? Or was it a constant battle between what you were building up here versus what was already structured and foundational down in Tucson?
Well, I mean, like they always saw the paperwork, and so they got annoyed with the paperwork. So that was one of the things that they always had a gripe with. But
Well, just because
ultimately,
it wasn't done to their liking?
yeah, like it wasn't like
They said we're closing deals.
right,
Like,
exactly.
figure it
Yeah,
out.
I was just in a salesman mindset. I didn't really think about other people and how like my actions influence other people. Now I have a team, and I have to think about that kind of stuff, and I have to be more organized and lead by example. But back then, we were just doing minimal numbers, and it was like, oh, you got a nice contract, great, but we're still the ones that are doing, millions of dollars a year. Now you turn it around, and my dad is like, wait a minute, you far exceed in a month, you exceed the sales that we did in a year. And so it's just funny how it's come full circle, where back then we were just like the small guy when you look at the balance sheet. And then now all of a sudden it becomes, wow, you guys are, 4X, 5X, 10X. And what was funny is he showed me a card when we sat down and did our year-end meeting. And my goal at the time was to do, I think it was like $44,000 in sales a month. And now we've 7X that in 10 years. It was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And, my dad makes the comment, oh, I don't know if you can, hit the huge numbers. And I say, well, but if you look at 15 years ago or 10 years ago, you said the same thing, and we 7X'd it to this day. So that feels really good to be like, kind of changing the script a bit. So,
Yeah. And in those the early years where we had '06, '05, '06, what then, as the Great Recession took upon, a lot of Arizona just took a big hit, the real estate market, a lot of your clients. What kind of things did you see in that time frame? Were you guys able to handle that recession over those few years? Was it because you guys were still, up here, didn't have a big overhead, didn't have the huge expenses that you have in today's world, where you can now manage through different types of recessions? What did you see in that end?
yeah, I mean, we had a team of basically 4 people. And so when everybody else had these big showrooms in Scottsdale and all of their, trucks and everything else and advertising in Phoenix Home and Garden, we could easily pivot. And so we could offer better pricing. We could, we weren't making bonuses. We weren't making high salaries. I was 25 years old, and I was happy making like $50,000 a year, having a company cell phone and a company a car. And so to me, I didn't need a whole lot back then. And it got to a point where I could compete, like you said, with the overhead, and we could survive. There was a point in time where my dad looked at both my brother and I, and we said, hey, listen, you're not hitting your goals. So if you guys don't fix this in the next 6 months, we're going to have to shutter the business. And I was like, okay, that gave me the motivation to just go out there and work harder. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
sometimes
but we
it's-
survived it.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss sometimes. You just knew you had to do it. Okay, so the last thing in this grit phase, though, obviously it wasn't always just rosy.
Right.
What type of things now, 20 years later, mistakes that you made that you learned from that now you can instill in your team that we're not going to do it again?
Yeah, so I think like the biggest thing is back then, being a young guy, is that I felt like everything was due and everything was owed to me, and like I would get angry and I'd get frustrated when I would lose a job and really push hard and just kind of be over the top. Now it's just, I realize, okay, if I can close 80% of the jobs that I'm bidding on, then we're doing a really good job. So I don't get upset. I realize that everything is going to happen in due time. If you have patience, if you give people the opportunity, sometimes there's things outside of their control. Sometimes there's people that are doing shady things behind the scenes that get them the job, and that's not how we do business. Like, we have integrity. That's important to us, is like creating that relationship, people knowing that we're honest, that we're not going to, try to bait and switch them, and we're doing everything by the book. And so now I don't get frustrated. I just say, okay, like, let's move on to the next opportunity. Let's learn from the mistake. Get feedback. How did we lose the job? What could we have done better? What's the next job that we can bid on? And how can we make a new connection and, keep that person happy? Because the funny part about the construction industry and design is that people will move from company to company. So we'll do a job and we meet, or get it through the architect, but then we meet a new general contractor, we meet a new electrician, we meet a new designer, a restaurant owner. They build, other projects, and then it creates a tree. I always like to think of business as a tree, because you're making new contacts and new relationships that grow your tree, and your branches and your leaves get bigger and bigger. So.
And in the marketing end of things in the early years, it was, you pounding the pavement, building the trust, doing what you say you're going to do. As you started getting a little bit bigger, what did you start doing anything creatively marketing wise to get Sunlighting on the map here in Phoenix?
Marketing, no. I mean, we really just focused on, we didn't like really do any kind of print ads, or my dad tried, he tried to do radio. And we did an event like maybe 2 years ago, and nobody showed up, and we spent all this money. And I explained to him, hey, radio's not the way to go, and there's so many better ways of marketing. And ultimately, like, what we found is just taking care of the customer, like showing up and being there, taking them to like a happy hour, or taking them out for dinner, for lunch. That was really important. But now that we have a business coach, it's like, it's more about how are you consistently showing up, and not necessarily giving gifts, because everybody brings somebody a bottle of wine, during the holidays. It's like, what are you going to do when they really need you? So sometimes like somebody will be remodeling their home, and they've brought us a lot of business. And so it's just, that's an opportunity to take care of them and show them our gratitude. And that leads to future business, because they remember it. It's in their home. They say, wow, that's great. So in the early years, we really didn't have a budget for it. And now we're starting to do more with partnerships. We just recently were a partner with House of Form, which I know was on the podcast. And she asked us to be a sponsor. So we were the top sponsor. And it was great because it was helping new restaurant owners get funding to start their restaurants. And I thought that was a really great thing to contribute and give back to our community. And people then know us, and the people that are on the board are people with Ritz-Carlton, Michael Mina, MGM Resorts. And so we gave a beautiful gold table lamp with our logo on it that was probably a $200 lamp, and a really great card that said thank you. And so that was a great marketing to be able to get to top level people, for them to keep that on their desk or keep that in their home and remember, hey, Sunlighting gave me that really cool, expensive, nice thing.
No, I love that. Yeah,
yeah.
We do a lot of that here too. It's the little things, whether they're not expecting it, or that, we listen to the client, and they, whether they're going through a tough phase in life and they're having health issues, and they get something in the mail from us, or they went on an awesome trip, and we get them something for them to memorialize that. So those are the things that can help separate a business from somebody else, because the client, the relationship, they know that you're thinking and listening and hearing them, and you really look at them not just as a number, but as a person, and you care about them. So as you're finding success then in those early years, now we start hiring people, and now you become an accidental business owner, even though you've seen grandpa and dad run a business. There's still no textbook for it. We don't go to school for entrepreneur. So now we're starting to have success. We're starting to scale. We're hiring employees, but that comes with its own set of problems, when the business still relies a lot on you, but now you're having to continue to probably be in those mid years, sales still come to you. You have to be the one that's bringing in the bulk of the revenue, but now we're trying to get new people on board to understand your philosophy, but we don't have maybe systems in place yet. We don't have the structure because we just haven't had the time at that point. So what in those mid years, as you're now in this growth phase, what kind of challenges did that bring you as you were trying to build scale to the biz?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what an SOP was. I mean, that was an acronym that was foreign to me. And we had hired a business consultant that kind of like had us read some books and understand. Like, a great book that he had us read was Who Moved My Cheese, which is all about change. And so we were scaling, we were growing, and change was happening. We were hiring more people. And, the person that was working for us, that was handling our operations, really didn't cut it anymore. And everything she did was she would scan documents, scan invoices, and scan orders for every single one. And we were working off of old, hardware and everything else. And so we were growing that, and we were building towards that. And when we hired our now CEO, she then took over for office manager. She had to then convince the person that was in her job to do it differently, which there was a lot of ego there. So there was always like that. You bring new people on, and the hardest thing is personnel and employees, because there's emotions, there's all these different things that come with that. So in learning that and how to navigate those waters and hire the right people, and we made a lot of missteps. Like we didn't have a fractional HR manager, so we would hire people off of Craigslist, and we would get some rough people, and we would get some people that had problems.
Yeah.
And so learning how to like grow and not retain people and hire fast and fire faster was like not something that we understood at that point in time. And so now we're like learning all these things and growing and looking back on that and saying, man, we did it not so great, but we got through. We made growth year after year. So,
and when was that you hired the CEO to really take on your role where you were handling everything at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem was my brother was doing like purchasing. I was doing like sales management. We were also just wearing so many different hats. And then she was doing some of the back end type stuff. And we didn't really want to give away a lot of the things that we were doing. Like my brother, for example, like he didn't want to give up purchasing. But it got to a point where there was only so many hours in a day. So if you're going to be successful, you have to give up this task and give it to somebody new. We had to hire a purchasing person. So hiring a purchasing person now took that off of his plate, and he had to understand then that he could go out and sell more. And that's what we really needed him to do, was to go out and sell more. And same with me. So I think that was a hard transition to, as an entrepreneur, you can't grow past a certain point without giving away some of the work and like hiring better people to, be smarter than you and make your company grow. And just like giving away that responsibility is like really hard, especially when you built it and you did it for so long. You think, well, can they do it? Do I trust them? And it takes time for you to create trust with them and them to create trust with you. But once you do, and you have a great team, it all flows. And then it allows you to go and do new things and market yourself and create new relationships and just grow the business and be the entrepreneur versus trying to be the purchasing person, the CEO, the COO, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think that's where we do see a lot of businesses that are on this growth trajectory falter, because that visionary, that entrepreneur that's trying to get their hands at everything, they think they can do it better than everybody. And maybe they can, but the key is, well, even if we bring on somebody that maybe does it 80% as good as I can do it.
Right.
That's okay, because that frees you up to do all the other things. But that's easier said than done. And I'm sure you guys looked in the mirror and said, okay, we're going to move this person up. They're going to take on this responsibility that we think is like the pinnacle, and we can't mess it up. And I'm sure there were some mess ups in the beginning, but ultimately that is one of those areas where it allows you in a cycle of a business to be able to then take it to the next level.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard for, and that's where a lot of businesses falter because of that, because they don't understand that, and they can't be everything, and there's not 30 hours in the day. And then the people that they bring on, they're like, well, I'm not going to stay here because they're going to micromanage me and I'm never going to do it right. So that's that's a good that you guys saw that in the middle years, and we'll be able to take that and be able to focus on what you could do, what's best for the firm itself, or the company.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a matter of learning those lessons and just figuring that out, going through it, because you're not going to grow. You're not going to advance if you just continue to just try to do it everything on your own. And you also get burnt out as an entrepreneur. Like, I know that it's really important for me to work hard, but also to have time to recharge, and like going to different industry events, going to markets, learning product, and like getting a chance to just like get reacclimated and get excited and passionate. I think I always want that passion. I always want new things to like focus on and like always be growing, because if I'm doing the same thing, I get bored, and I might be a little bit ADHD, but hey, it's important for me to always be doing a new type of thing. So sometimes I'll move from, and for our business, it's really important. I've seen a lot of people fail where they only want to do one market sector and they only want to do one thing. And then that's going really well. But then when the market tanks in a certain sector, like let's say track home builders, production homes, that tanked in '08. And then it's like, well, are you differentiating? And do you have other things that you can move into? moving into hospitality, into restaurants, moving into custom homes, moving into senior living and multifamily. So it's always having that that variation and being able to like say, okay, I can do this today and that tomorrow, and I don't feel like I'm a one-trick pony. So,
and your industry's it's forever changing year after year. Technology changes, trends like you just mentioned change. How do you stay in tune with that as the industry itself? It looks a lot different than it did probably even 5 years ago, and it will look a lot different 5 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that a lot of the lighting companies that existed for many, many years were family-owned businesses. I mean, you go back and you look at them in the Midwest and East Coast and even West Coast, and we're all family-run businesses. Now, the people, the entrepreneurs that started those businesses that had the grit, that had the hustle and figured it out, they scaled it, but then they don't have kids that want to be, second generation, third generation. And so they go and they sell the company to a VC fund. And so a lot of these big manufacturers have scooped up a lot of these lighting companies. And so now it's becoming more corporate. And they used to do things like trips where they would take everybody to Europe or to Hawaii. Now that doesn't happen as much because it's all, looking at the budget and seeing what's available. But now what's great is that we're seeing, we also see companies that come into the market that sell, they bundle lighting and appliances and plumbing hardware. Well, that's not something that we want to, do the same thing. But I had one of my friends she was a designer, and she said, "Why don't you guys get into furniture?" I said, "I don't know anything about furniture, but we already had the space. We already were a brick and mortar." And so we got into dabbling into furniture, and now we're going to be opening a furniture and accessories showroom next to our lighting showroom that's going to be just dedicated straight to furniture. And that's become a huge sector of our business. So it's like, how do we see trends in the market? How do we differentiate ourselves and add value to customers? How do we not stay, a single thing? And how do we grow and do things similar but different and strategic in the market? So,
and then what are some of the things that you started building as the scale mode happened to create the structure for your sales team or the internal team? What type of things couldn't be where you are today when you guys were just hustling and running? What did that look like?
So I mean, a lot of people, we started talking to a lot of our reps, and they were bringing to our attention a CRM. And I didn't know what a CRM was, but I did some research, talked to a lot of people, got a lot of information, and realized that the CRM is only going to help us stay organized. And it was important to me to hire a business coach. And so I, had my dad interview a bunch of different people because we didn't really have an org chart. We didn't have a flow, and everybody was just kind of like operating, by the seat of their pants, trying to fill in the gaps. But I realized if we're going to get to that next level, we have to have organization. We have to understand what is leadership. Our people want that organization. They want to understand who is the CEO, who do I go to. They wanted a HR company to be able to contact because, I don't want to, be doing things illegally or in the wrong way. And so I want to support our people and create an environment where they, have an outlet to go to that isn't the owner, because that's a little bit odd. And so having all of these practices in place, creating the CRM, we even have the system that my dad had us sign up for, which is a DOS-based inventory management system, which is horrible. And now we're in the process of looking at upgrading it to something like an Oracle or things like that. And that is scary, and change is scary because that will create a lot of upset and people not, being used to that system. But you have to have that in order to move forward in today's world. Like, people are expecting automated responses, better customer service, pictures with their invoices. A DOS system just simply won't cut it. So,
yeah, no doubt. The investment into the company, it can be scary, but it's going to take you to the next level.
Yeah. And if we have to take a little bit as entrepreneurs, we have to take less at the year end instead of, putting that money into our pockets, or even we do get a nice dividend, but instead of just going out and buying a new car, buying a new house, it's like, hey, let's hold on to that money so we don't have to borrow it from a bank. Like, let's have that capital. So if we decide to, invest and reinvest in the business, we can, have that liquid capital to be able to like improve it, go out and improve systems to make our business better. because the ROI on that is huge. I mean, if you invest in the business and you pick the right things and you have the right people that are looking out for you, then it should have a good return on investment or some return on investment. And, we started realizing the same thing with, hiring a wealth management company and like starting to do 401ks, is that we had to innovate. We had to like get up to speed with what's going on in the marketplace today. So, and what people are being offered for other jobs too.
And now let's talk a little bit on the multi-generational working with family.
Yeah.
It's a lot of businesses are family run, and the hope is of the entrepreneur, the one who started the company, that family will come in and take over the reins. How's that been for you working with Dad and your brother?
Yeah.
What's that like? Let's paint that picture.
Well, so the interesting thing is that my dad was never college educated. And so he went to work for my grandfather, and my grandfather wasn't the kindest to him. My dad worked a lot of hours. He actually had to start a side business called Dan's Fan Service. That was when people would have a ceiling fan and you could have somebody come and like service the fan. So he struggled to like really get the ability to run his business on his own. And so when he did, say, okay, you can, start this business in Phoenix, he basically just like allowed me to do what I needed to do and kind of stayed out of the way. But he also offered really good guidance along the way. He was more of a coach, like a leader, showed me where like I needed to like fix things and just helped along the way. It wasn't really telling me who to call on, what to do. And that was really helpful to have, somebody like that who is willing to just like let me do what I needed to do. And he offered a lot of great advice along the way. And then my brother coming into the picture, he's my younger brother. It's always an interesting dynamic to work with a sibling, especially growing up. We'd fight over toys and things like that. And now all of a sudden you've got, difference of opinions on ways of doing business, but ultimately like through, therapy, a lot of therapy, I relate it to like a marriage. So we go through, sometimes we have opportunities to like talk it out, work out the problem. But we both, at the end of the day, if we realize that our common goal is to be successful and we appreciate, these are the things that you're great at, these are your strengths and these are my strengths, how do we work together to create that end goal? I think putting that as far as the perspective sees huge success, which is what my dad always said, going back to, you put you guys together and if you guys get along, you could kill it, which is what we did. And so, there's always new challenges, and now having a CEO as part of the leadership team, she has, we're giving her the ability to manage the business and be in charge of the day-to-day operations. And she's great. And she's got a lot of great ideas, and we want her to be successful. I even said when we were, going through the process of creating an org chart, she would be an amazing addition to the team because she cares. She wants the business to be successful. She sees it as a family-run business, and she wants this to do well. So I trust her, and it's having the trust with those people is like huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's fortunate that, maybe Dad saw how not to lead from, the difficult, I'm sure there was good lessons learned from his dad, your grandfather, but being able to see, okay, this is what I didn't like on how I was micromanaged and never could maybe do the right thing. And then enabling you to kind of have that ability to run with making mistakes. That is a testament to Dad, to allowing you guys to take it and make it to what it is today. I'm sure a lot of decisions you made over the years were maybe it wasn't exactly the way he would have done things,
right?
But being there as unbiased as he can be, that's a good testament, because we heard the old adage, family businesses, T-shirt to T-shirt in 3 generations. Where the original founder builds it up and makes it successful. Second one comes in and maybe the growth stunts a little bit, and then by the 3rd generation, company's gone. And like my good friend Adam Goodman, he's a 3rd generation furniture store. Yeah. He was on the podcast I think like 7 years ago, but similar aspect there where they've each generation has taken it to the next level. But it's because the support that was there from the father, and for them, grandfather started I think back in the East Coast, but similar concept there. So I'm sure you've let Dad know that you've thanked him for allowing you guys to grow and make mistakes, but to to build it the way that you think it needed to be built.
Yeah, and it's what's funny is that when he took over the business, like he created a lot of innovation, and I think he was the same age as me, and he was like taking on new programs and new things, and now at my age, taking over and moving in that same direction, it's in today's terms the same thing, and so it's funny how those cycles happen. And, to be able to have people that embrace those changes and allow for that, to innovate and to grow, it's just necessary for, the next generation, if they want to be a part of it. So.
And then, so you've created this leadership team, including the new CEO. Is that something that is relatively new, or how long have you had a leadership team that's helping to the growth of the firm?
Yeah, I mean, we've moved. Like I said, we hired the business coach this time last year, and he's great. And we have like weekly meetings with him. And so I would say this summer is when we like made the formal announcement and gave the org chart out to all of the employees and introduced them to the new CEO and my role as the chief sales officer. So yeah, I would say it's pretty new, and we're still stumbling. We're figuring it out. People are trying to figure out and respect each other's like roles and letting people handle things. And it's as an entrepreneur and an owner, it's like you're driving down the road and you think about something and you're like, you start, getting involved in something and kind of poking your head into it. And then you realize, hey, maybe I shouldn't be, doing that. I need to let our CEO or our marketing, team or our HR team, let them handle it. Maybe bring it to their attention, but not insert yourself into it, because, you want to, like, inherently you want to like still be involved in the day to day, and you have these ideas, but it's just like you can't always like execute or, get involved in those processes. So.
And the business coach that you hired a little bit over a year ago, I think that's, again, another important aspect of any business, investing back into yourself and spending the money to have these mentors that can help you grow. How did you find your business coach? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs are out there, and whether they're in a group like EO or YPO or even a Vistage where they have other areas like that. But when you find a business coach that, meshes with you and your culture and your growth plans and gets you, how did you find that person?
It was just mostly like, I think my dad was the one that was like, we kind of tasked him to do that. And he like sought out a few people, and some of the names that he came back with, I did the research and I'm like, no, that's not a really good choice. Once I kind of started like digging in and trying to figure out who they were. And we did finally come to an agreement on somebody, and it was like, okay, well, let's interview him and let's talk to him. And he flew out, and we had our year-end meeting, which is usually mid-January. And he came and talked to us and interviewed all of us. And what was funny is that he taught us about DISC, which is the personality profiles. And he told us like the minute that he walked in, he could tell, what all of our profiles were, because he's so good at, reading people in that way. And so I was like, what's DISC? And so we learned more about it. And now I'm like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. And it's like a helpful tool. And so, yeah, at the time it took us just doing a lot of research and a lot of interviewing to get to that point. But there's also a lot of people out there that say that they're business coaches or life coaches, and they're not really, what we were looking for. And so we had to be really specific about, here's our goals, here's what we want. Do you feel like it's a good fit? So
what excites you over the, if we look out at the business plans for the next few years, what's that getting you out of bed each day? Like what's keeping you that driving force to continue to grow the company? What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm in a sales management, position, it's like I want my team to really go out there and do the best they can. I want to mentor them. I love making those relationships and, handing those jobs over, and also getting those people. We get a lot of new salespeople that come on, and it's not just like, okay, you got to go out there and just sell on your own. We're just going to drop you in and like let you figure it out. I'd rather, train people, show them like the right way of doing things, not just like feed them to the wolves, so to speak, but help them to like learn how to create and cultivate the relationship. So even with like interior designers, I might have worked with them for 5-10 years, but now somebody new is coming on and I want to go and, work with new people. I still love working with that customer, but I think this person's better suited to like really kind of take it to the next level. And so trusting them and like introducing them and bringing them on, in client events or happy hours, that's huge so that I can then grow. And so for me, it's like working more nationally, working on more hospitality. I love restaurant projects. I love, being able to take people to where my work is and show that off. That's really important for myself, for my kids, to see that. And so, that growth is exciting. Growing furniture, growing relationships is just, that's what I see as like the future. And,
is the expansion beyond adding these new lines, you guys see having Sunlight offices in other parts of the country?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're already doing business and like a lot of business in Florida and like on the East Coast too. But yeah, having an physical office there would be great. Like we interviewed a guy, he was based in Minnesota and he has tons of contacts in hospitality. But unfortunately, like right now, we're not at the stage yet of having our CRM in place, having a good all of our systems on the back end. So our goal right now is like, how do we get to that point where we're ready to scale and like we've fully bought in, all the systems are working. Now we can bring on new people that are based in other parts of the country who can expand our business and we could just let them kind of flow and do their thing. So
again, another smart initiative there is, well, you've already been walking, running, but before you start sprinting is make sure things are dialed in. So it looks like 26 is going to be the year of getting the systems even more dialed in, investing in what you need to so that scale, the continued scale happens in a manner that's as efficient as possible, which of course, anytime we scale, there's going to be headaches and things that you didn't even think about.
Right.
But at least gives you the fighting chance to be as successful as possible in that realm.
Well, and just being organized and like having a plan and not just like flying by the seat of your pants. I think that's the thing is that I've realized that if you continue to sit there and just try to put out fires every day, you're never going to move forward. You're just going to continue to just be a firefighter. And so that's not fun. And so it's like, how do you think forward? How do you create something that's going to like move you, to the next level? And we didn't think about that before. We were always just honestly just like survival mode. How do we grow? Okay, we've got a little bit of money left over at the end of the year. Do we buy some trucks? Do we invest in something else? Like, what do we do? But we're learning to say, okay, well, we kind of need to slow down, but also build. And so I think, yeah, it's like having that structure and organization that makes, and clarity. Clarity is a big thing too, is that people that feel that they see the vision, they understand where you're going, what you're doing, what you want to do, then they're like, okay, I want to jump on board. I want to be a part of this. I want to be like a part of moving that needle. And so I think having the clarity with my employees is really huge and getting them to buy in on like what we want to do for the future.
And as you continue to grow the company, this being, a legacy asset, family, multi-generational, do you have a vision of your kids eventually turning into the fourth generation?
I mean, it'd be great to do that. I don't know what they want to do. Like even my dad, encouraged me to go and do other things. But ultimately, I would love for employees to start, being a part of leadership and grow. Because before, I mean, my kids are 13 now, but we have a lot of great employees that have that entrepreneurial spirit, and I see it, and I want to support that. I don't want to, I mean, people are going to go and move on in their careers and grow, but if we could create an environment where we can promote from within and really get these people who have great ideas and they're younger and, they have new ways of doing things, like I embrace that. I want that because that's going to help us to get to that next point. And these are people that are already working for us, and I want to support them in their growth in their careers too.
And with that, what type of culture have you been trying to build within the company itself beyond closing the deals and growing efficiently? Has that been an important aspect of the people that come to work every day for you? What are we doing to try to, make their lives better? What type of culture are you guys building?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately we want people to be happy with what they're doing and feel supported. I know I've seen other sales jobs where people have to fight tooth and nail to get their commission checks, or, they're always worried about, how am I going to get my end of year payment, or do they care enough about me? So as a sales manager, I look at the numbers and I like meet with them. And then this is a relatively new job, but meeting with them one-on-one and saying, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to succeed? And do you realize that you're only, $5,000 away from meeting your goal? How can I help you to get to that point so you can get that year-end bonus? And like most owners would say, well, I don't want to give away extra money. I mean, why would I? That's more money I get to take home. But if those people are doing well and they're earning and they're making those big commission checks, they're going to go out there. They're going to be motivated to want to work hard, to like go out and take on new things and new challenges. So for me, it's like you're just reinvesting in the people that you're working with. And it's also when people do need time off for like, we're having a baby or I'm going through a hard time, it's like, how can we support you in that? Because we're still a family business and we want to create that culture of we care about our employees and we want them to be, taken care of. But also now we have to do things a little bit differently and just be more mindful about, well, what's fair to the business too. So
yeah, it's towing that line of, being an empathetic leader, but also having the structures in place. We're not favoring one versus the other.
Right.
And as you continue to grow and expand, that becomes more difficult. But the key trait there is as the leadership team, if the employees, the stakeholders, if they know that you really care about them, that it's not BS, that it's empathetic, that you want them to, they're going to have be successful, but there's going to be trials and tribulations that we all face in our day-to-day life, whether it's family, it's health, and being there to be support system works in spades in regards to the growth mindset that I think is so important. And a lot of business owners don't have that. Maybe they're a little bit of a psychopath. Yeah. They don't have that type of mentality. So I think that's an important genre there as well.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked today about you taking over the reins and building something really from scratch. And that was a lot of just hustle, just working hard. There was no textbook for it. Nobody gave you anything.
Nope.
Hard work, grit, going through cycles too. In Phoenix, the one benefit is that this has been, since you've been in the business, exploded in growth, which gives you multiple opportunity to find more and more clients just internally here. But that's one thing versus actually putting in the work to make it happen. Two, then once you built it and you knew it was in theory sustainable, where we weren't just chasing how we're going to make how we're going to cover the next expense, how we're going to cover that next monthly check, then the scaling, making sure that you're putting the time and investing in the company itself. And that's something that, again, listeners, yes, it costs money, but that's what an investment is. We invest in systems, we invest in people, and importantly, taking things off our plate that we know as we want to grow as a business, we can't do it all. So you've kind of followed that path, a lot of different throughout that path. You've probably had, as we talk through the trials and tribulations, but pick yourself up. We learn from our mistakes and we look at what we're building now. And the next 3 years, the next 5 years, as long as you're having fun building it, your goal is to continue to thrive in this marketplace.
Yeah.
And we'll be looking forward to the new showroom. So we've got the 20,000 square foot showroom that you have right now. And then the furniture is going to be right next door.
Right next door. Yeah.
How big is that going to be?
It's not that big. I mean, it's well-used space. Like it was funny because we keep running out of warehouse space because we keep growing and growing. And so instead of buying a building, we just keep assuming over other people's spaces, and kind of once they've left, we take over that spot. And so that building we're actually using for storage. And we're like, well, why wouldn't we utilize this space that no one's using? And so we gave our CEO a strict budget. And the design showroom manager, she, was given, okay, here's your budget. Here's what you have to work with. And she produced it. And it was also like calling on favors and calling on vendors. And, I have a friend who's a really successful AV business here in town. And, he was willing to help and step up because we support them. And so those relationships are huge because we're trying to, advance and build. And so it's going to be great. It's really an awesome space. And I'm excited to see, what's to come. And it's fun because my twins, now that they're 13, like we're going to take them to market so that they can really get a feel for what is it like to go to market and purchase and see all these showrooms. And I always like fantasize about going, and my parents would be like, oh, there's gummy bears and there's prime rib and there's drinks. And It's a great time. And so now we get to bring the girls with us, and they get to experience. So that's kind of integrating into the next generation too. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, and really focusing on something that is outside my comfort zone. But I'm very encouraged that we're going to, really do a great job with it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And as we wind down, any last words of wisdom for the listeners?
Entrepreneurs are what built the country, and they're just amazing people, and they're just always like innovating and creating new things. And what I love about that is that, you have a lot of these big companies, but they started with entrepreneurs. I mean, Elon Musk didn't start with a huge company. It was just him with ideas. And, so, you just have to realize that we are always thinking, we're always trying to innovate and always trying to create. And we always have these big dreams. And, it takes an amazing team to take those dreams and make them a reality, because sometimes we're dreamers. But we need the structure. We need the people to execute and get us to that make that dream a reality, so to speak. So,
well said. Well, we're proud of what you've built, and we're looking forward to seeing what the next 20 years will look like at Sun Lighting as you continue to grow and evolve yourself.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing your story. And obviously, if anybody wants to find Sun Lighting, whether they're local or national, the best way to reach you guys is?
We have our website, www.sunlighting.com. Also, our Instagram is at Sunlighting Official. So that way, and
Perfect. That'll all be in the show notes. Well, thanks for sharing your story with us as we wind down 2025 and have a wonderful 2026. Thanks for listening, and new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond later next month. Happy planning, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.